Hello, I'm Philip Ryan, and this is The Floating Voter, Independent.ie's award-winning podcast. Kevin Doyle is unfortunately off this week, but I'm told he could be found last night in Copperface Jack's any time from 3 a.m. onwards with our sound man Gav Hennessy and many more of the Independent newspaper staff who kept the Christmas party going well into the early hours of the morning. Anyway, that leaves me to hold the fort, and I'm joined by a very special guest this week. Now, the last time I interviewed this particular politician, he ended up apologising to Gardaí on the evening we published the interview. So I said I'd go a bit easier on him this time. Welcome to The Floating Voter, Finian McGrath.
Thank you very much, Philip. I'm delighted to be here. And let's hope
let's see how this goes. And we're recording it as well, so no one can accuse me of not quoting you properly. Or not.
I never did that. I never did that. No, in fairness.
You didn't.
When I cocked up that time, I cocked up myself in the story.
Yeah. Anyway, we said we'd do more of a personal than a politics interview because everybody's heard your views on various subjects and they've changed and so forth over the years. But there may not know an awful lot about you or your background here. I think for starters, do people know you're actually from Tuam in Galway?
No, it's funny. A lot of people say that to me when they discover that. Yeah. But no, I was born and bred in Tuam, County Galway, Ballygaddy Road, the road beside the sugar factory when it was open that time. And I was reared there, a very happy childhood. My dad was the local postman and my mother was a nurse. And there was 5 of us in the family, Fikra, Mary, Fergal, Mags and myself. And we basically, and Fergal, I mentioned Fergal, I better mention them all now. And we had a very happy childhood, but also very, very kind of involved in local community issues as a kid. My dad was kind of very involved in the Order of Malta. He was a volunteer ambulance driver. My mum was a nurse. She was involved in the Vincent de Paul and disability group. So it's kind of was in the genes.
Was Fianna Fáil also in the genes?
Oh yeah, my parents were solid Fianna Fáil politically, even though there was a bit of a split. My mum was a Charlie Haughey woman, and my dad was a Jack Lynch man. So we kind of grew up with this tradition, but they would have been very friendly personally with the kids. Remember Micheál Kitt and Micheál Kitt Senior, and then Micheál Kitt Junior, the TDs, and Tom Kitt and Anya Kitt who became TDs, and so there was that was the politics. But I suppose growing up, I was a bit of a maverick in the family. And,
but just with the Fianna Fáil, they were Fianna Fáil members, card carrying
members.
They didn't run, or they wouldn't.
No. There used to be meetings in our houses when we were kids and all that kind of stuff. And we used to see Mark Killalake coming and going, and Micheál Kitt Senior, and then later on Micheál Kitt Junior. So there was a strong interest in current affairs and politics growing up. That was the tradition.
And you were going to say there you were the activism in the community.
Yeah, I just said people often say to you, because when I grew up then and left Tuam, went to Tuam CBS, and then I went to Pat's College in Drumconnell as a student, became a teacher, and then
that was at 18 in around. You went straight in. Yeah,
so I would say. So I was in Pat's in Drumconnell for trained to be a teacher, and then when I got my first job teaching St Mary's Space Boys School. That was in the north inner city, and I just fell in love with the area, and that's the first time then when I met.
Was it a tough enough school?
It was a tough.
And you would have been early 20s, going in.
I was the young teacher going in with the long hair, all that kind of stuff, trying to change the world.
Yeah. You were the cool teacher, were you?
Well, I don't know about that. Well, I did play the guitar, and I did do the choir, and I did have groups in the school. I did that kind of situation, but then I met Tony Gregory. He was a young councillor at the time, and I met Tony one day in the school. We were talking about education disadvantage. Nowadays they're called DESH schools, all that kind of stuff. So I suppose I was interested in this new councillor who was interested in the drugs issue, disadvantage. So I said to him, listen, if you ever want a hand, I'll give you a hand. So the next thing, he stood for the following general election, and then not only got elected, but he held the balance.
Was there a lot of drugs around at that time? We were talking in the 80s,
absolutely.
When heroin first came into Dublin,
I mean,
around
this
that
is
time.
the unsung, the untold story of the 80s. That time was, we had all this huge heroin epidemic with lots of tragedies, with lots of kids, 14, 15, 16, dying from heroin. But then among that pocket, there was these amazing people from Hardick Street flats, from Dominic Street flats, all around the north inner city, whose kids turned up every day with their homework done, their uniforms on, their diary signed. And these were amazing people living in the middle of all this and yet surviving. And I just they influenced me a lot, because if you're talking about tackling poverty and issues like that, there's more than an economic argument to the issue. It also means when you have good parents, solid parents, whether it's a good mom or a good dad, you can survive a lot of things. And a lot of these young guys, I became friends with them later on, and a lot of those guys did very well against the odds. So I think there's a lesson. So that influenced me in a big way.
When you look at the drug problem that was there in the 80s in inner city Dublin and probably the south kind of areas of Dolphin's Barn and in around there too, how do you compare it with today and the amount of drug? Like when you walk around the street here on Talbot Street, you see like there's open dealing on the streets. There's people that are clearly, addicts walking around.
There's more fear today.
There's more fear.
There's more fear from people who want to try and deal with the issue. And what I mean that is there's more violence in the modern society. There's more violence now. I remember when I was involved, I was the local principal. I became principal of the school, by the way. And when I was the local principal, we used to have meetings in our school about drugs. We used to have education programs, training programs, and then we had supportive programs for addicts and their families. But we weren't afraid of any drug dealers. There was a confidence there. We were doing the right thing. And if drug dealers threatened any one of us, we kind of collectively as a community, we stood up. And I remember one night chairing a meeting in my school hall where a dealer sent in 2 of his team to check out who was doing the talking at the meeting. I just said at the meeting, if anybody threatens any one of us, they threatened the whole lot of us, and there was 300 people in the hall. So
now was it noticeable that these guys were here to kind of intimidate
the parents told me. But the message I'm saying though is, that wouldn't happen nowadays. Nowadays, somebody would have been shot, somebody been serious, burned out. And now as a TD, I see it in my own constituency, where families are coming to me. There's widespread intimidation. People will not go near, have anything to do with a public meeting about drugs or drug dealers.
Really,
The fear is absolute. I think when people, the sections of society don't realise that in my constituency we have whole streets that are dominated by drug gangs, and the parents will come to me in my clinics, in my office, tell me the details, but they will not go near the guards. They will wait for me to do it. And that intimidation, that's the difference. And the level of violence. You saw the 3 murders in my constituencies in recent weeks.
Yeah. Well, this is it, but without having a go at the guards, obviously, because it's not their fault. But you do see it in the city centre that the open drug dealing, the young guys on the corner. There's actually a spot there outside Wood Quay, the civic offices, where drug dealers, young drug dealers, these guys can't be more than 18, 19,
right,
sit and wait for the guys coming out of Merchants Quay to sell them their drugs first things in the morning. I see them when I'm walking into work. So is it just the visibility of police? Is it that type of thing we need?
We do
society to stand up to it.
We need society, but we need you need quality policing, and you need more community policing on the streets. And like I know from my experience in the 80s, we had a good relationship with the Gardaí in the 80s. The irony about the whole thing, the one guy that was very good to us was, and he's now one of the was John O'Driscoll. He was the head of there was a unit in the inner city called the Mockies. You wouldn't remember this.
I remember that. Noreen O'Sullivan was one of them, actually.
That's right. It's interesting now, the 2 of them. But what they did, they generated confidence among the parents in my school, because they took out the dealers, they took out the heads, the really disruptive ones. They did a lot of undercover work, but they brought the community, which was marginalised in one way, but they brought respect back to the Gardaí and the community by the actions on the streets and the actions in the community. So I think we need to be open about that, and we need to see more of that.
Okay, and Tony Gregory, you mentioned earlier, he would have been very strong on that issue, but he was kind of a political mentor for you, was he?
He was. Yeah. I mean, I started off. Essentially, I had no plans to go directly. I was more of an activist. I was interested in politics. I was interested in. As I said before the interview here, I was teaching the kids guitar in the school. I was interested in choirs. I was interested in the under 13 team. I coached the under 13 team, my school football team. That was my gig, and it was only later on in life when I got married then that I was out one night in the pub in the Canton Cajun Drunk actually having a quiet pint with Tony, and he said, "Listen, McGrath, why don't you're involved in Marino, you're involved in disabilities, you're involved in residents association, you're involved in the GA. Why don't you give it a crack in the local elections?" So that's what
the first 2 didn't work out great for you, did they?
Oh no. Well, listen, it took me 10 years to get into the All-Ireland.
Yeah.
But it
was a pastime then, really, was it, or was it something that you like at that stage? You were doing it as kind of almost a pastime.
It was like a pastime, but it's like outside, like politics is my life, and it's also like the day I got elected to All Ireland, just like me getting paid for my hobby, because I just loved politics and being involved in issues. So when I got into the All Ireland in 2002, to me it was like getting paid for for something that you love.
Yeah,
like outside sport and music, politics is my gig, and that's it.
Yeah. And you mentioned Anne there.
Yeah.
I think I read in a Hot Press interview you there that the first time you tried to get her to go out with just your wife, she shut you down. Yeah, where was that?
As we say, I don't know that you use the phrase anymore, she blew me out. And no, that was, and this is her, by the way, this is her 10th anniversary this November.
Oh, really?
She's 10 years dead now. And so, yeah, the first time I met her, she was a fine looking woman. And the first time I met her, I went over, tried to get off her, and she just didn't want to wear. But she was with a gang of women who warned her.
So you were ballsy enough going up to her, were you?
I know, but I warned her. So, yeah, with a chance of my arm. And then a week later, then I was back in the same bar.
What bar is this now?
This is the Teachers Club in Parnell Square.
Yeah.
There's a bar upstairs in 36 Parnell Square. It's called the Teachers Club Bar. And we used to go out earlier on in town. We used to go to the Shakespeare. And then if we wanted to go for an extra pint, we'd go up to the Teachers Club. So there was this gang of women in there. And my Anne was there. And the next thing was she blew me out the first night. So the following Friday, we were back in again. And next thing, whoa, she was there.
She had less friends with her.
So she had all these friends with her.
No one protecting her.
But one of my own friends said, McGrath, if you don't do it now, we'll go over and do it. So I went over and she said, yeah. But that's in those days, there was no mobiles, right?
Yeah.
I had to get her number, get her home number.
And she was living at home with the folks, obviously, at this stage. Yeah.
And then when you ring the following day to set up the date, you're talking to her mother. All the things you hate.
Well, this is it. I know my own parents that... like in those days, you didn't move in with each other, I presume, until you got married as well. People were getting married just so they could get out of the house.
Yes, absolutely.
But you moved fairly quick, though, did you?
Oh, I didn't. Well, I knew, to be honest. I knew, Philip, that I knew within a matter of months that this is the woman I was going to get married to, and we were married fairly quickly, and
within a few months.
No, not within a few months. Oh no, we were sensible. We saved for the house and all that kind of stuff.
So you were ready to go and moved in, yeah. And so, did I read in the same interview as well that it was 14 years she had cancer?
Yes, she lived with cancer. She reared Caoimhe and Cleena with cancer. We always say that she lived with cancer for 14 years.
And it was just kept going.
Yeah, she started off with breast cancer, then she got it in the bones, and then she got another. But she's lived. It was the pancreas and the liver that got her in the end.
Yeah.
And even recently now that they've moved, things have changed over the last 10 years. Yeah. Some of the treatments have dealt with that one. But it was that. But she reared the two girls, and we just lived with her. But Anne was very positive. She was determined to raise the girls, and she achieved that. And as you know, she's a big lass, and there's no point in saying that Caoimhe and Cleena were still broken-hearted, and that's it. And they're all.
And what was her quality of life even during those times?
She had good times and bad times. The first time she did, you know, the way when you get breast cancer, they remove the tumour and they remove the breast, and then you kind of if you get 5 years clear, you're kind of saying, this is it.
Yeah.
But she got 5 years clear, and then it came back again
straight away.
And then it came in. No, there was a bit of a gap, but then it came back, and then another form of cancer came back, and that's what happened. So it was very difficult for us, but I'm very fortunate. I have two great girls, Caoimhe and Cleena, and number two then is Caoimhe is now married with her own two kids, and she has Cillian and Anna, and Anna's called after Anne. And they're really good and very supportive of me, emotionally supportive, and we're plodding along. But there's no point in saying it did have a devastating effect on the two girls.
Yeah.
There's no time.
What age were they when?
Caoimhe was just in her early 20s, and Cleena was about 19 or 20. Yeah.
And I saw Vicky Phelan over the weekend was talking about obviously her struggles with cancer and
I saw that.
Yeah, and she was talking about she'd like to almost because. The pain that she'll inevitably have to go through. She'd like to decide her own time herself.
Yeah.
Like, given what you've gone through and given Anne's plight, is that something that we should be able to do in this country?
I think there should be. There's already an open discussion about it, and I welcome the fact that Vicky has raised it, because a lot of families, thousands of families go through that debate every year in Ireland, and people forget that. So the answer to the question is absolutely, yeah, and I think it's, if people want to make the decision themselves, that's their personal decision, and I would be very supportive of them, and particularly in relation to the medical issue. I believe John Halligan has a bill.
John's been campaigning for this for years.
John has a bill on that one, and so my answer is that after my life's experience is that if somebody is in very, very severe pain and somebody wants to make a decision, that's their decision, and I don't making any moral judgments on it. And I think that's what happens in some of the hospitals. It's basically, when you're on your last few days, they increase the amount of morphine you get to help you with the pain, and sometimes that then you just person goes to sleep then. But it is a very traumatic experience for the person.
Is it something? Maybe the debate wasn't there, but was it something that you and Anne would even have discussed back then, or?
Well, the one thing that poor Anne used to say to me was, "Don't let me die in pain," and I did that. So anytime she was in pain, they increased the morphine, and I would do that for anybody and any member of my family, and I'd say the same about myself if I'm in that situation.
Yeah.
So, but it's a very difficult.
It's a difficult
place.
conversation to
It is a
have
very
as
difficult
a society, as much as.
Yeah, but I think the conversations there, and to be honest, what Vicky Phelan said there in recent days, it actually brought it back to me again. The whole issue of that, and I think patients have rights to do these things, and that's the way. I think they have a right, and I think a lot of the medical profession privately understand that, but they obviously won't go there.
Well, I think it'll be the next big discussion we have, even, and it's on the table. But like with all these things, with abortion and same-sex marriage, it takes a while for people to come around. You mentioned your daughters there as well.
Caoimhe and Cliona.
Caoimhe and Cliona. Cliona was born with a
Down syndrome.
Yeah.
She's my second daughter with a disability. Yeah.
And Caoimhe has a disability as well.
No, Caoimhe's my eldest. She's married with 2 kids, but it's Cliona has Down syndrome. She's born with Down syndrome.
And is that your inspiration? Like, disability has always been your huge thing. You worked with Down syndrome Ireland as well, didn't you?
I did, yeah.
And you've campaigned a lot on that. Is that your inspiration?
Well, the irony about the whole thing, we often joke, when I was involved as a before I even got married, before I was always interested in kids with disabilities anyways, right? In my day job, in the classroom, I was always kind of. I remember a department inspector coming in one day, and he says to me, McGrath, he says, "Have you ever thought about going into special ed, which dealt with disabilities?" And I was only a young teacher out of college. I said, "No, I haven't thought about it." But he says, "You're good. That's your niche." Now this is before. So then a few years later, get married, have 2 daughters, have a second daughter with Down syndrome, and so then I found myself in that situation. So I was naturally inclined to be supportive, but then when you become a parent yourself. And then you have a different mindset, and you see the barriers and the sadness, and like we had a major hit that night in Hall Street. First of all, we were told our daughter had Down syndrome, and the second thing the consultant said, he says, "I don't think she'll last the night, and we have to take her to Crumlin."
Oh, really?
She had major problems with her stomach and breathing issues and all that. They didn't think she was going to last. So Crumlin staff took her over. We saw her. I'll never forget it. I was really emotionally upset. Coming out of the lads coming in with the ambulance, bringing this little small bundle over to Crumlin, but the Crumlin had her for 10 days. They fought, saved her life. Cliona came out of Crumlin perfect. It was amazing. So physically, she didn't have the heart problem, but it's a very traumatic time for families, and there's a lot of sadness as well. People don't often talk about, but you're kind of shocked. You don't know what you're going to do. You have all these visual things. You're visualising 10 years, 20 years' time. So there is a lot of trauma. But what we did, when we got over the initial shock, we just knuckled down. And then, of course, me being a bit of a mouth, I suppose, I got involved in the Parents Association Down syndrome Ireland. Then I became treasurer, and then I became chairperson of the Dublin branch. And then I kind of got into the whole idea of fighting for people with disabilities. And little did I think that I'd end up as a minister for disabilities, which is ironic, but in a nice kind of way. I'm very proud to
the
have
attitudes towards Down syndrome has greatly changed over the last, you say 30
Huge.
years. You must, like, even the way they're people's attitudes towards them, and obviously as well the medical kind of, I don't want to say medical treatment, but the caring for them, that like it's a lot about empowerment now, and there's been huge changes, and that's found if you give someone with an intellectual disability some sort of freedom to feel that they can do a job, they can do some sort of work, it's hugely changed their life.
Oh yeah, the mindset in society has changed. No, but that started, but we still have a long way to go. But I will accept, for example, now I'm in the middle of finalising the HSE social care plan for 2020, and there's going to be in the region of 2 billion spend in 2020 in disability adult services, which is the highest in the history of the state, right? But the key thing here is, yes, we have moved on. There are major problems as well, but also the mindset in society has changed. We're moved away from the medical model to the social care model. We're talking about the rights of persons. We're talking about what I do is I was out in the CRC yesterday in Fairhouse. I was doing an event to do on the United Nations Disability Day, and I was just met all these wonderful people, and I kept talking about their ability rather than their disability. We have 7,000 people at the moment working in public service who have some form of a disability. We have 13,000 students at the moment. over the last 20 years have gone into third level education, which never happened 20 years ago. Imagine that. And then we also have, so there's lots of changes in society, but we still have a long way to go. And that's why I got the UN Convention ratified, because since we got that UN, that strengthens my hand when I'm negotiating on behalf of the disabled.
And would Cliona talk to you about that type of stuff?
Yes, she's very good. She's on in her own centre. She's in a fantastic service, day service. It's called Prosper Fingal in Swords. I drop her to the bus every morning at 10 to 8. She gets the bus. The staff have train them to be independent. She has the bus pass, goes out to her service, gets there, rings me at 20 past 8, said, Dad, I'm here, I'm in the service. And she's there with another 40 kids, young adults, and they do personal development, IT, drama, art. It's like a third level college for them, and they really love it. But and
then makes her way home,
and then they have a committee in the centre representing the voices of the disabled themselves. And the Finian McGrath is on that committee. She's one of the staff, one of the reps.
An activist of herself, yeah.
She's an activist, and she loves the gig.
Would she go out canvassing with you?
What?
Would she go out canvassing with you?
Of course, yeah. The two girls always help me, yeah. She would drop the leaflets now and say, vote for my dad.
And do you worry a bit yourself what happens after you're gone?
Ah, you do, of course, and that's one of the issues where you see, and that's why people give out to me that I focus a lot on the emergency. They're called emergency residential places in the HSE service plan, and a lot of people are saying to me, McGrath, you're always kind of focusing on that, but I'm focusing on that because I'm meeting all these parents in their 70s and 80s who haven't got long left, and they want me to make sure that their adult son or daughter has a service. So what I'm doing is I'm using this final budget probably that I'll ever have is to prioritise those cases, and I will take the hit when it comes to other areas because I feel that those families. So the answer is people do worry about it. They want to be sure about it.
It's an awful worry.
It is an awful worry, but the good news is we've set up a system now from the cradle to the grave. That you can see that we've improved the services in primary school, secondary school, and now the adult service is the one I'm focusing on. So I just like to reassure all the parents that there will be a service there for their kids, and there will be a residential, and it won't be an institution. It'll be a residential place in a 4-unit house where 4 adults with disability with care staff on site. So they're the kind of plans that I'm making, and that's what I'm trying to do, finalising this budget, my last budget probably.
Well, if you're worrying about what happens when you're gone, why do you keep up the smoking?
Because I love it. The two things in life, Philip, I enjoy outside politics and a bit of sport and a bit of music. I love having a fag and I love having a pint. And that's my totally chill out time with my neighbours and my friends, and everybody knows that. And you can talk to me, and my daughters give out to me about it. Everybody gives out to me about it. But I have a philosophy in life that you live every day, you enjoy every day, and why would you be holding back? It's like my friends who give up the drink for November.
Yeah.
I can never understand that because
the pub is empty.
And then as soon as they do the month, they go bananas for a week.
Yeah.
And I kind of don't. Whereas I'd have a few pints twice a week. I enjoy them with the neighbours and the guys I know. I love going down to Tuam. I go down to a lot of the Tuam Stars matches. I love going to the Vincent's matches in Marino, and that's my chill out time.
How many smokes would you be on a day? Honestly, no.
Honestly, I do try to cut down to 20. I buy 20.
Yeah.
But some days now.
And what are you smoking? Benson Hedges?
No, I smoke Sinclair Blue, very mild.
Okay.
To see trying to justify it. But no, I do try to cut down. And some good days now, I'd knock it down to 10. If I wasn't, for example,
Would the stress have you under a few more now if it comes to budget talks, or if you're in the...
Well, last night now...
Or Shane's really
coming
annoying
up to the vote. Coming up to the vote last night at 10 o'clock in the Dáil. Or on Tuesday night. I had quite a few fags outside.
Was it that cagey though? Was it not always in the bag?
Yeah, so what we didn't tell you was we were worried about. We had some of the TDs were abroad.
Well, this is it.
And they were flying in from all sorts of places. Yeah. And all you want is two to get stuck in an airport, which can happen. Yeah. So the answer to your question is, we weren't in any way complacent. And I know it was a very serious issue, and we're very, very, we were under pressure. There's no debate about it. The gap was only 3, and now it's only 2. Yeah. And of course, we're still very annoyed with what happened yesterday with Deputy Murphy. I just think it was bad form.
Yeah, well, it's an interesting one, and now with him gone, of course, that reduces the minority. It's even one because Thomas Pringle wasn't in the Dáil, so that if he was there and Dara's gone now, it's just down to 1 TD.
Thomas was away getting an award somewhere in Germany, but he cancelled out Simon Coveney. I think was in Gaza.
No, Michael Fitzmaurice.
Michael Fitzmaurice
was paired with Simon Coveney.
Sorry, with Simon.
I don't think there was
any.
So
who was Thomas Finkel?
I don't think he was paired with anyone.
No, he wasn't. Sorry, that's the one I got.
Maybe
wrong.
there was.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
But that means that, like, how comfortable do you feel then at the end of the day if you're in a government that's kind of relying now on the likes of Noel Grealish, who I presume has made comments that wouldn't be in tone with some of your
and I've told Noel straight out. Yeah, I strongly
and of course Michael Lowry, a controversial figure as well.
Everybody knows where I stood, and I told them straight out, and I also told Noel straight out about Ruth Derard. I wasn't happy about it. He knows that, and because I think TDs have to show leadership on this particular issue. I think racism cannot be tolerated, or any kind of sectarianism cannot be tolerated in Irish society, and I think politicians should do that. And I think the same in relation to the by-election in Wexford, and also out in North Dublin, the Fingal by-election. So I think we have to be strong. Because there is an element in society that want to stir it up, and I do believe that. But to go back to the original question, yeah, we're hanging in there by the thread. But I still think, if you ask me 4 years ago or 3.5 years ago, everybody was expecting us to last 6 months or 18 months at the most. We did well now, and I'm glad we got this far. So Anton, after this is a bonus for me. I just have things I want to do. That's the reason I'm hanging in there, basically. I want to get the social care plan done now in the next 2 weeks. I still have to get this cystic fibrosis unit. I've got the budget. I've got the planning person has got. It's the planning design team are now on it, but I need to have guys on site with shovels. That's what I want.
And you're going to go again, aren't you?
Yes, absolutely, yeah.
Definitely. And would you go again after that?
I'd say this is probably my last one, yeah.
Yeah.
And we'll see how it goes. You never know in politics. But,
and we tee up Damien O'Farrell then to come in after you?
Well, Damien is a very loyal friend. He did very well.
Councillor on Dublin City Council.
Damien, Councillor Damien Farrell, great councillor. Topped the poll in the local elections. Even with the Green tsunami coming down the track, I thought he did very well. And the other issue is, it's there for him if he wants, and it's there for the taking in the future. But I don't know what's going to happen. I'll see in relation to my own position as well, because I'll definitely go have a crack this time, but I'd say the following time now it'll be time to do something. But I'll always be involved in politics. And one thing I'd like,
sorry if you don't mind.
I'm 66.
Okay.
So I'll always be involved in politics. So one of my little things when I do eventually decide to retire, I want to get involved in helping young men and young women get involved in politics, because I think there's too much cynicism nowadays. We need more young people to get involved, and I will help any independent councillor or candidate anywhere that I think has a future and that wants to give to the country, and that's something that I'd enjoy doing. So I'll never be out of politics. I'll just do something different.
And what about the Independent Alliance? There's a lot of talk about, is it or isn't it going into the next election as a group formed and ready to go?
Well, the four of us are there ready. It's like for anybody looking to talk to us, I think it's a very handy from any big party's point of view that you have four ready-made TDs there that are work together. We're very different. We're very diverse, as you know, but we're all independent in our own right. We'll be standing ourselves in our own constituencies as independents. But absolutely, if we get the first thing to do is get over the line. The late Tony Gregory said to me, all these talking about deals before elections. The first thing you do is get elected yourself, and then you do it. But the answer is, and we have a couple of other good councils around the country as well. We have Kevin Canlon up in Dundalk, or Drogheda, and he's a strong base. Maeve Euro's up there as well, but I don't think Maeve is going to stand. I think it's going to be possible. So, and we're looking at other people around the country. So, if we had 4 6 TDs, that'd be a nice group again.
But I mean, are we going to see Independent Alliance on your poster? Say, are we going to see a launch of the Independent Alliance candidates early next year? Or do you think it'll be less cohesive than that?
My view is that we haven't decided on that yet. But my view is that I think every one of us will go out and fight for the seats and then regroup afterwards. Yeah. And that's my view.
You can offer yourselves up like that. What do you think of the theory? There's some people worrying in Fine Gael that they mightn't even come back after Christmas. That the Dáil, you'll break up there. I think it's on on the 18th.
Well, the Taoiseach told us, and I'm sticking to the plan, is that it was going to be his preferred option is May. I don't expect him to change his mind. But as you know, Philip, events change, things change in the Dáil. There's also a rumour going around about votes of no confidence in February, trying to put pressure on Fianna Fáil again. That's going on as well. I don't expect the election to be called I know it's risky saying this, but I actually believe it'll be next April. I think Micheál Martin will stick to his word, and I think that the Taoiseach will be happy with that. And as we've learned in the last 2 weeks, events, my dear man, things change radically.
Well, we might have to hold you to your prediction.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah, listen, thanks for coming on the show.
Great to be on.
Tune in next week when Kevin will probably be back for more political analysis from the Floating Voter.